Not only am I about to, I think accuse is the right word. Not only am I about to accuse Colin Kaepernick of being a sellout, I'll take it a little bit further and say he's kind of a grifter. And while I'm at it, since I know that is like fighting words to a lot of people, one way or another, just mentioning Colin Kaepernick and you'd like to fight. But while I'm at it, I'm going to ask why more people aren't saying the same thing. So I get it. I get mentioning his name. And yes, there is a reason. Yes, there is a present day reason for bringing him up. And there's a lot to it, a lot to his story. And I know that if I mention him, you want to fight one way or another, whatever your reason is. So what I'll probably do is make everyone angry by suggesting that he became a sellout, and I think at this point kind of a grifter. And I'll make the case. I don't really want to say this stuff, to be honest with you, because I have always defended and even promoted Colin Kaepernick for this reason. And I've said it from day one. He owned his protest, and he answered for it every chance he had. Agree or disagree with what he did and why he did it, he made his point every chance he had. Every time there was a camera, a microphone in his face, he explained while he was kneeling. And his position, in case you don't remember, was this. And I, again, give him props at that time for being very clear. And he said something to the effect of, I'm not going to stand up and show pride for a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. I think more than once he added, to me, this is much bigger than football. And I think that phrase by itself is pretty important to remember, since I'm going to go down this road of making everyone angry and saying this is a sellout and this is kind of a grifter move. So just keep that in mind, saying this is bigger than football. Disagree with this protest all you want. He was respectful to his teammates and respectful to the San Francisco 49ers organization. Not only that, he reportedly, I looked it up just a few minutes ago, he gave away $1 million for causes that he believes in. So there's the setup of what there is to appreciate. Again, agree or disagree, I've always found a level of appreciation for how the guy went about his protest and answering for his protest, even knowing people would disagree. There. So he takes the 49ers to the Super Bowl, was it, I think 2013. And they're an eyelash away from winning the whole thing. He then chose to be a free agent in 2016. And I know what people want to say. Hey, Jeff, do you think his protest is the reason he was out of football then? And I think a lot of people love to play with this question, and I'll do it as well. Is it the reason he's out of football now? I don't think so. I don't. And here's why. And I've always maintained this as well. He was playing horribly before the protest started. The organization started slipping. His skill set slipped. They just weren't very good, and he wasn't very good. And I don't think his skill set is good enough today, is good enough to justify all the attention that comes with signing him at best. If you were to sign him in the last couple of years, and that's important to remember, too. But if you were to sign him in the last couple of years, at best, he's a backup. And I think that might be a stretch. Now, do I think his protest and what all comes with it matters? It does. Yeah, absolutely. I remember just getting hammered for drawing this comparison. It's, to a degree, the same thing that comes with Tim Tebow. Agree or disagree with their positions, I don't care. It comes with a lot of stuff. It comes with a lot of conversation. It comes with a lot of attention, and they're not good enough to justify it. It's just not worth it. And I think that about Colin Kaepernick. I don't think the reason he's out of football is because of his protest. He kept throwing the ball to the other team. Does it have something to do with it? Yeah, it might. Okay, so at best, I think he's a backup. Here's where he started to lose me, and even more so now. He filed a collusion claim, and I don't think many people. This is what's a little bothersome about this whole story. For everyone, look, if you want to rally behind the guy, fair enough. I did. I promoted how he went about answering for his protest. But this part, I think, is really lost in the entire story, and it's kind of ridiculous. So he files a collusion claim against the NFL. The legal argument with the collusion claim is this, that enough owners, not all 32, it can only be 2 if necessary, but enough owners agreed to not sign him. Now, a lot of people have believed that from the very beginning, and I think people still believe it to this day. You look around the league and say, man, how is that stiff on an NFL roster, not Colin Kaepernick? And so the argument is brought up pretty often. So he makes a collusion claim against the NFL that some owners got together and said, let's agree not to sign him. Was it true? We don't know. We don't know. You know why we don't know? He took a payoff before even giving a deposition. We didn't have a trial. We didn't even have a deposition because they paid him before that, and he never did the deposition. So we don't know if they were guilty of collusion. We don't know that at all. Possibly. So he took the payoff before giving the deposition. Of course, the NFL did not. The NFL, as you now know, is incredibly image conscious, and there is no way they were going to let that videotaped deposition get out and that guy call them a bunch of racists. They weren't going to let it happen, so they paid him. He took it, and that should bother you. If you really want to rally behind the purity of his protest, it should bother you. And I'm telling you, he's now taking it to another level. So he doesn't do the deposition. He disappears. The statement was typical of the NFL. Both sides have agreed to blah, 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 settlement. If there was ever a time, see, this is where he lost me. If there was ever a time to make your point that they've colluded against me, and I need to continue to grab the stage and so I can have my protest heard. If there was ever a time to make your point, saying no to the money and saying this is bigger than money, and you do the deposition. Right? No. He took the money. And he took the money. It was clearly obvious. He took the money, and part of taking the money was, I'm going to be quiet. And he did it. The guy who built his young life around not being quiet, all of a sudden took the money and got quiet. That was his chance, in my opinion. You can disagree all you want. I'm fine with it. I don't care. That was his chance. He took the money from the owners, and it's pretty obvious he agreed to be quiet for a while. We don't know the terms because, again, it's pretty obvious everyone agreed to not disclose the terms. So how much was he paid? We don't know that either. Because the guy that worked so hard to be heard all of a sudden got paid to be quiet, and he did. I got a problem with that. I think that's a sellout. In 2021, then, moving it forward, he was part of a Netflix series titled Colin in Black and White. I remember talking about it. I remember showing clips of it. I thought it was over the top and outrageous. I thought the imagery was weird, and it was just this, it was like an acid trip. But he produces or is a part of the production of Colin in Black and White. And in the film, he didn't mildly accuse the NFL of modern-day slavery. He said it. And then he just didn't say it, he showed it. In the opening scene, or one of the opening scenes, a group of black men are paraded in front of a group of white men in shackles. For those that haven't seen it, it's really pretty dramatic, but in an art form, not dramatic in a good way. It was really kind of cheesy looking. But either way, He didn't imply they were racist. He said they were racist. And then they sold these men in the clips to a football coach. Not a fake, not some imagery of a football coach, the coaches. So he then creates this show. A lot of people said, well, way to go, way to take them on. Way to take them on, you took their money, man. You took their money and you agreed to be quiet. And he's not even done yet. So he produces the show, or a part of the show, consults on the show, that called the NFL oppressive slavery. Got it? Now, you can call that show, the Netflix special, powerful all you want. I thought it was outrageous. I thought it was bordering on silly and pretty ridiculous, my opinion. So not long after calling the NFL slave owners, he then did what? Went public with his desire to play for the NFL again. He even put together a video to show teams about his workout. He held a private workout. You know why he held a private workout? This wasn't that long ago. He held a private workout to get a job to get signed. He wanted someone to sign him. In fact, in 2022, he said, quote, "I know I have to find my way back in, but if I have to be a backup, that's fine. That's not where I'm going to stay. When I prove that I'm a starter, I want to be able to step on the field as such," end quote. So the guy that wanted no part of the business, that said everything about his protest was bigger than football, the guy who then took the money to not give the deposition, to out all the people he said were so oppressive and so terrible, took the money and was quiet. The guy who then produces a Netflix series accusing them of being slave owners then decides he wants to play for them again and get a job and get a check. And he's all but begging publicly to get a job in the NFL. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going and going. I know he's donated money. I know his protest was passionate. But no one along the way has ever once decided to say, come on, man, you can't call them slave owners and beg for a job. And he would have taken it. No, they didn't sign him. I said, at best, he's a backup. So he says, I want to find my way back in. I'll be the backup. I'm not going to be the backup very long. I'll be the starter. I want to be able to play, blah, blah, blah. So the guy that took a payoff from the owners is the same guy that said it's modern day slavery, is the same guy who then wanted to bring in the owners and the coaches for a workout so he can make the public case that he wants a job to play in the league again, and that he's willing, as he said, willing to do anything to get there. That's the same guy who said his protest was bigger than football. Just saying. I mean, is it or isn't it? So then, now the same guy, Colin Kaepernick, who is not a stupid guy, I've defended him from day one. I said that he's smart. I said that he's not afraid. You can disagree with him, but in a world where people are spineless, the dude was not spineless. He made very passionate and articulate points about why he held that protest. And he did it, and he did it, and he did it. And he said when he speaks, he sounds very convincing. And I don't disagree that he's passionate about it. But the same guy, not a stupid guy, the guy I defended from the beginning, said his protest was bigger than football. Now he's generating publicity because he's writing essays for a book titled Our History Has Always Been Contraband. I don't know much about the book. I'm not saying I completely disagree with the book. But in the book, which he is now promoting himself, he says black liberation simply isn't possible under capitalism. Says the guy who took the money and then wanted to go back to the NFL. I mean, at some point, why isn't he even criticized about this? And I don't mean criticized from his initial protest. I mean criticized from, buddy, you can't keep holding these positions and taking the money. You can't keep holding these positions. And these are not light terms. To claim, pretty clearly claimed that the NFL is a bunch of slave owners, and then you want a job with them again, and now you're writing a book and you're promoting it saying that that capitalism is unfair. Where's your money? Why'd you take it? Why'd you sell the shirts? He's always made valid arguments. I'm sure in the book he might make some valid arguments. I'm a militant free enterprise person myself, so I'm naturally going to disagree. But I'm really going to disagree, and I'm really going to have a problem with more people that don't have a problem with him. Along the way, if you were propping him up and you were cheering him on and you were saying this guy is doing the righteous thing, how in the world can you say that now? Now when it's convenient, he's condemning capitalism. When it's convenient, he's condemning NFL owners, calling them slave owners. But when he wants a job with them, it's a completely different story. How are people that admired the effort, myself included, not saying, hey, buddy, you took the money, you wanted more of the money, you wanted the job back, and when they didn't give it to you, you condemned capitalism. Where is the rest of the criticism here? Right? I mean, he started off so passionate and so committed, and he was. Even when he took the payoff to not give the deposition, I heard very few, I don't even know how many people even know that happened. I heard very few people criticize him along the way.